Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. James had always considered himself the kind of man who could take a joke. He liked humor, kept things light at work, and even at home, he thought laughter was a glue that kept relationships together. But nothing prepared him for the evening that would quietly unravel everything he had built with Elizabeth. It was a Thursday night, the kind of ordinary night where Elizabeth had gone out for a girls' night with her closest friends. James had no objections. He trusted her completely. They'd been married for 8 years, and like many couples, they developed an easy rhythm, or so he thought. Around 9 p.m., Elizabeth texted him a cheerful, "Have fun tonight." And James replied with a quick, "You too. Don't drink all the wine." Chuckling to himself, he settled into the living room with a book. He didn't know that one small joke he would send later over their group chat was going to set off a chain reaction he could never have anticipated. Earlier in the evening, Elizabeth's friends had started teasing her about James, jokingly saying he's sweet, but you could probably find someone better. She laughed, and in the playful banter, James typed back a lighthearted response in chat. "Hey now, don't make me jealous. I'm still the best man you've got." He hit send, imagining it would make everyone laugh. Almost immediately, he noticed a subtle shift in the tone of the chat. Elizabeth's responses were curt, punctuated with ellipses. There was a quiet tension he hadn't expected. He shrugged it off, thinking maybe she was just preoccupied with her friends. But by midnight, things escalated. He received a text from Elizabeth that made his heart sink. "We need to talk. Tomorrow. Alone." That was unusual. They rarely had formal talks, especially not at this hour. His mind raced. He went to bed that night, trying to piece together what had gone wrong. The next morning, Elizabeth was distant, unusually cold. She barely acknowledged his morning coffee, and the conversation started abruptly. "James, I think it's over," she said, her voice eerily calm. He blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "Over? What are you talking about?" She took a deep breath. "I can't do this anymore. Last night, your little joke about being a better man. It wasn't funny. It hurt, and it made me realize I've been holding on to something that's no longer there. I want a divorce." James felt his chest tighten. The words landed like a cold slap. He opened his mouth to respond, but no argument, no plea, no explanation could change what she had decided. The calm certainty in her eyes left no room for negotiation. In the following hours, as Elizabeth began making her arrangements, James felt a whirlwind of emotions. Shock, disbelief, hurt, and confusion. Everything they had built, the quiet nights, the mundane routines, the shared laughter, suddenly seemed fragile and meaningless. He paused for a moment and realized he couldn't let this moment pass silently if the story is gripping you. Hit the like button so it reaches others who can relate. The day stretched into an awkward quiet. Friends called. Elizabeth's parents were concerned, but she remained resolute. James, in contrast, was stuck in a liminal space between disbelief and clarity. He kept replaying the joke in his head, wondering how something so minor could spiral into the end of his marriage. By evening, he found himself alone in the kitchen, staring at the counter where their coffee mugs used to sit side by side. He thought back to their first date, to the promise they had whispered to each other, to the laughter that used to fill the rooms of their house comment below your thoughts on how a small joke could lead to such a major fallout. What would you have done? James decided he needed space, so he left for a long walk, hoping the night air would give him some perspective. As he wandered, memories flashed by. Elizabeth's smile, the way she used to laugh at his silly jokes, the quiet moment of intimacy they shared. The reality now was starkly different. The warmth and comfort had been replaced with distance and indifference. By the time he returned home, Elizabeth had already packed several of her things. The sight of her moving through the house with quiet efficiency hit him harder than any words she had spoken. He realized he had spent years building a life with someone who no longer wanted him in it, and all of it could vanish in a single evening. Trying to process it, James opened his laptop and typed a single word in their shared chat: understand. It was simple, factual, and devoid of emotion. It was his first act of taking back control. even in a situation where he felt powerless. Type the word understand in the comments if you've ever had to accept a harsh reality without reacting impulsively. That night, as he lay in bed alone, the house quiet around him, he realized something profound. This wasn't about a joke. It wasn't about being right or wrong. It was about realization, about understanding that some relationships are fragile, and even small actions can expose cracks that have been there for years. The next morning, James woke up with a strange clarity. The fog of shock had lifted just enough for him to think strategically, even as his heart still throbbed with hurt. Elizabeth had already left early for another appointment, leaving him with a silent house and a growing awareness that he needed to regain control of his life. He went through the rooms, observing the traces of her absence, a half-empty closet, the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the hallway, the quiet hum of appliances left running. Each small detail reminded him of the life that was slipping away, yet he found himself strangely calm. He knew the fight wasn't about anger. It was about boundaries, about standing firm in the face of something sudden and devastating. By mid-morning, James sat down with his phone and started documenting everything. The text, the timeline, the messages in the group chat. He wanted a clear record, not for revenge, but to anchor himself in reality. Share this story with someone who might need to see how quickly relationships can shift and the importance of clarity. Around noon, a message from Elizabeth appeared. We need to discuss finances. Tomorrow, lawyer involved. James read it slowly, letting the words settle. This was a confirmation of the irreversible path she had chosen. He didn't respond immediately. He took a deep breath, understanding that any reaction now needed to be measured. James spent the afternoon recalling their years together, each memory a mixture of joy and now pain. He thought about the laughter that had once filled their home, the quiet support during difficult times, and the moments of vulnerability he had shared only with her. But beneath those memories, he felt a budding realization. The relationship had been fragile long before the joke, and perhaps it was merely the catalyst, not the cause. Later that evening, Elizabeth returned briefly to pick up more belongings. The tension was palpable, yet she didn't speak beyond the necessary. As James handed over a box of books she had requested, he looked her in the eye. No anger, no pleading, just presence. I hope you find what you're looking for, he said softly. She paused, a flicker of surprise crossing her face, before nodding and turning away. The encounter, simple yet charged, left James with a sense of finality and a strange liberation. He realized that closure didn't always need confrontation. Sometimes it came quietly, in the acknowledgement of truth and the decision to move forward. Comment below with one word that captures how James handled the situation. Let's see how others interpret his strength. Over the following week, James began reclaiming his space. He adjusted the home routine, revisited his favorite hobbies, and even reconnected with friends he hadn't seen in months. With each small step, he felt more in control, more like himself. Elizabeth's absence, while painful, also created a space for growth, reflection, and recalibration. On the third day, he received a call from Elizabeth's lawyer, questioning the arrangements and requesting certain clarifications. James remained calm, responding factually, without letting emotions dictate his words. He documented every conversation meticulously, ensuring that he stayed above the fray, that he maintained his dignity while protecting himself legally. Comment your thoughts on James's calm approach, and don't forget to subscribe to follow more stories that explore real-life relationship challenges. By the end of the week, the tension that had gripped the house seemed to lift. The emptiness was no longer a void but a canvas on which James could rebuild. He realized that the joke, which had seemed insignificant at the time, was merely a spark that revealed deeper truths. Elizabeth's departure was a harsh but necessary awakening. As he sat on the couch one evening, reflecting on the whirlwind of events, James understood that life had a way of testing patience, trust, and resilience. Sometimes, the people we love make choices that leave us stunned, and the only way forward is with clarity, calm, and a focus on self-respect. In the quiet moments that followed, James allowed himself a small, genuine smile. He was not broken. He was learning. He had faced the unexpected, the sudden collapse of what he thought was stable, and emerged not defeated, but awakened. The story of that night, Elizabeth's girls' night, the joke and the aftermath, would remain with him, a reminder that even in shock and betrayal, one could find strength, dignity, and the courage to start anew. And in that new beginning, James understood a crucial truth. Sometimes, the ending we fear is the one we needed all along.